Now that we have all our embroidery pieces finished, we're going to press them from the back side. I do use a little steam, but it's up to you. And I also use a little starch just to set that size pretty well. One of the reasons we didn't want to draw the outline from the book is because when you stitch, it can pull the fabric in a little bit, and then when you steam, it can shrink the fabric a little bit. And we want to make sure we cut these exactly to size. So the finished size is going to be 2.5 by 4.5. So we're going to cut these 3 by 5. And what I do is I take a ruler. This is going to be the 3-inch side, and I'm going to just kind of eyeball each side to see if we have about the same amount on each side. And I also use a pilot friction pin. That way, if I draw it, I don't like where it's at, I can always iron it away and start over again. I want to make sure that my lines are straight. That's tipped a little bit. I'm going to straighten that out. So that's 1/2 inch, that's 1/2 inch. I'm also looking at the 1/4 inch, and I think that looks pretty good there. So now I'm just going to draw my line on one side, turn it over, draw my 3-inch line on the other side. I'm going to line it up with the line that I just drew. And now I do the same for the 5-inch. And I'm going to line it up with both those lines that I drew to make sure that I get a nice squared corners or edges. So that to me looks about centered in there. Got that lined up nicely. I'll draw my line. And somebody's doing their yard work. And then if I think that looks fine, then I can go ahead and cut it down. If I want, I can go in 1/4 inch and make sure I'm not cutting anything off. It's always good to measure twice and then cut once. That looks good. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that down to size. And even though I have the line drawn, I'm still going to line up the edge of my fabric with the markings on my ruler, because I still want to make sure I get that nice and square and that I get that 5 inches by 3 inches. There we go. And then we'll just finish cutting the rest of them down to size and start stitching them all together. Now we're ready to start piecing. So we have our 3 fabrics. We have the medium, the light, that was the embroidery background, and then our dark contrasting one. And I like simplicity when it comes to piecing. So this is pretty simple. You're just going to cut the strips, and we're going to sew them together in different ways, following the directions. Something I'd really like to point out is when you're sewing these strips together, please, please, please press them to the dark, like in the directions. And that way, when you cross cut them and you sew them together, those little seams, they're just going to fit just perfectly snug and just snap into place there. And that way your corners are going to be really nice and sharp. And then we're just going to cross cut them into the different segments that we need. So there's different lengths that we'll cut them to, and then we'll end up sewing these back together again. Some of them will form the little 9 patches, and then some are just these little guys. So when we piece it together, those go on that side, those go on that side. You can see how it all starts fitting together there. So now I'm going to finish cross-cutting these pieces, and then we can start piecing. So we've sewn our strips together. We've cross-cut to form these different little blocks. And now what we do is we take those and we're going to combine them to make these different rows. So we're going to do 3 of these rows that use the 9 patch and this little strip and these little pieces. And then we're going to do 2 of these strips, which use a variety of different pieces that we've cut together. So now the only thing left is to arrange all of our blocks in an order that we like. So it took me a few tries. I switched around a few little blocks until I think I got it the way I like it. And now I can just piece this all together. Now all 4 rows with the embroidery are finished. And it's helpful, I put these up on my design wall and took a picture. And it's helpful to refer back to that picture as I'm taking them off the design wall and sewing them back together again. So far in the stitching process, I haven't pinned a thing, but now pinning is going to be really, really important. So the row that goes on the top of this is going to be this row. So I want to make sure I pin it at each of the intersections because I want my little corners to line up really well. So take your time, pin, and let's sew this thing together. Now that it's all pieced together, I went ahead and quilted it. I stitched in the ditch, but another idea is to do little crosses in each of the intersections using 6 strands of embroidery floss.